Vessels of Wrath have been out for a couple weeks now. And competitively in the Warhammer 40K scene, it's been doing and performing slightly well at 45%, according to Meta Monday over the weekend, where a couple people took it to a couple of tournaments, won a few games, but lost a few games as well. Is this really a good detachment? Today, we're going to break down a couple of lethal army lists that I've put together to let you know and break down exactly what are the benefits and tips and tricks of taking the Vessels of Wrath as opposed to taking the Berserker Warband. Stay tuned and locked in. All right, let's get locked in and talk about a couple of Vessels of Wrath list. So continuing on from the last video that I did almost 2 weeks ago, and you can go ahead and check that out on my Onslaught Gaming 40K platform, where I did a complete breakdown. I actually named it Wrath of Khorne as well. I preferred that name. I understand that the algorithms probably didn't pick it up, but that's okay with me because I like to give you all quality product and a quality content, and hopefully it helped out a lot of people just understand the Vessels of Wrath or the Wrath of Khorne detachment. So, continuing on what we was talking about previously, now we're going to start doing some army lists, right? And start understanding, since it's been out for a couple weeks, we want to start understanding exactly what it takes to run these lists. So I've broken down a couple of tips and tricks for everybody to kind of watch, right, for the Vessels of Wrath. So first things first, what is the Vessels of Wrath and how does it benefit you? So it gives you the ability to have 3 units to do what they want to do and when they want to do it, and select a blessing that it's not already active. So just to be clear, that blessing cannot be already active for the rest of the army. That also means that you're going to lose the ability to advance in charge with anything else. If you're taking Angron, you're not going to be able to advance in charge with him. It's not really a big detriment because he has such a fast and amazing movement of 14 inches, right? So usually the enemy is probably around mid board about turn 2. You can get him mid board around turn 2 and then start charging the units that you need to charge with him if you're taking Angron with you. Now, in my personal opinion, I feel 50-50 with Angron. I think Vessels of Wrath actually gives you the ability to not have to take Angron. So no anger needed in your list. He's still an amazing piece. He still punches up a lot higher than he should, right? Because he has such a high strength. He has amazing damage. So he's still a very amazing, unique unit that you still might want to take in your list. Maybe you feel like he's needed. Maybe you don't feel like he's needed. Maybe you want to take more Terminators and take this opportunity to do that, or take more Berserkers. But that's what the Vessels of Wrath list does. It gives you more options and it really widens the gap of our limited amount of data sheets that we have to really use something else other than Angron. So, continuing on, it also means for the tips and tricks, it has potentially play without Angron, like we were talking about, and try new lists. Also, it's more resilient to enemy shooting in Vessels of Wrath. In Berserker Warband, you have the -1 damage, but it's only in close combat. In the Vessels of Wrath, you have the -1 to wound when you're being shot at. So, what does this do? It leads you to the opportunity to really put things on the middle of the board, be open on the board a little bit more. Maybe you can place 10 Terminators on the center objective, give them -1 to wound, also give them feel no pain, and make them a lot more resilient than they currently are. So Vessels of Wrath is more of their stratagems at least are more defensive. Now it does lead to more efficiency in their stratagems as well, since you're losing that extra attack and that extra strength, which can be problematic for your Terminators. And you're probably going to see people who are not running a lot of Terminators because of that, because of their low strength, and you don't have the opportunity to. But with Vessels of Wrath, you might see more people with Berserkers and Jackals, right? Because there is a stratagem to buff both of those units that gives them +1 strength and gives them +1 attack as well. So, or +1 AP as well. So, can be pretty big on both of those units. Berserkers at strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage can be very, very spicy. And you know, the Corn Lord on Jug also gets a much needed AP boost. The damage output is a lot higher with a ton of attacks. Now, that's because of the Arch Slaughterer, right? You can also put the Arch Slaughterer on a Demon Prince, which can get a nasty sweep of 2 damage and that +1 AP as well. So you really have to pick and choose what type of units you want to throw in there. It's really up to you and the flavor that you want. Remember that Demon Prince is quite pricey. If you take a Demon Prince that's going to support your units, you probably don't want to put the Arch Slaughterer on him. You probably want to put, you know, something to either on a 4-up or 3-up if you're a vessel unit, which you probably won't make your Demon Prince a vessel unit, but you can probably take that enhancement, which will give you the ability to actually just be more efficient, right? And be better. And a better damage output as well with your sweep. So we'll continue to see, you know, how this is performing out. But the Demon Prince is definitely a great option, and the Jug on, you know, the Corn Lord on Juggernaut as well. So, you know, or you could throw the Vox on him. The Vox can give you, like I was saying, a 3-up if he's a vessel unit, or a 4-up to get an additional CP, which our army is very CP hungry. We really like to use our stratagems, especially in Berserker Warband, but we don't have that at Berserker Warband. But at Vessels of Wrath, we have some decent stratagems, not as good as the previous one in the index, but we have some very good stratagems that can help us. And getting some more CP is never a bad thing, right? You really don't want to put the Avenger's Crown on the Demon Prince. I mean, you could if you find some rhyme or reason to why that will be very strong for him, or the Corn Lord on Jug. But most of the time, you're either taking the Vox, the Arch Slaughterer, or the Gateways to Glory to allow one of those units to just basically go through enemy units and forget about screens, right? And just negate that entirely. So enemy units also don't want to fall back against us because we have that amazing stratagem, right? They really don't want to. If it's on Exalted 8-bound, they really don't want to go anywhere, right? Because you have the opportunity to basically lock them in, or you can forego that ability and just say, go ahead. You want to fall back? Well, we're going to punish the Craven. And if you fall back, you're going to have to take a Desperate Escape test. And for every Desperate Escape test that you take, subtract 1 from those tests. And on a 1, 2, and 3, that model dies, whatever it might be, right? And this one actually doesn't exclude anything other than monsters and vehicles. So, like other armies, it's a little bit more restricted, but it's still very good. It's still going to kill those characters, it's an infantry unit, things like that. Those pesky units that you really want to make sure that disappears, right? So they can decide to fall back or decide to stay in combat, but they're gonna, you know, get destroyed regardless because you're World Eaters. So they could decide to die on 50% of their dice rolls, or stay in combat with World Eaters and die fully. Also, if you're close to the enemy because of applied pressure, you can Blood Surge as well. Any unit can do this and get them into combat. So this is very strong, especially if you're using it on Terminators or Exalted 8-bound, or just regular 8-bound itself. And it also If you're doing it on Berserkers, you have the ability to re-roll that dice. Very strong. If you've seen the FAQ actually reworded this so you don't have to move the full distance, right? You can make your charges a lot um, shorter instead of having to get engaged with that close combat unit. I think in Berserker Warband it's a lot better. And this one it really doesn't matter because you're not getting that charging bonus. You still get a charging bonus, like always, if you do a charge with the instead of blood surgeon into the engagement range, you get that fight first. But it's not super necessary if you're going to have a lot of attacks or you're super resilient, which the Vessels of Wrath actually allow you to do. And also, which is probably one of the biggest ones, and this is why I was saying that the efficiency actually rises in the Vessels of Wrath, right? You have the ability to re-roll wounds on Berserkers, and this is absolutely gross. With all of those attacks you have, if you're running with 2 Eviscerators on that 10-man squad of Khorne Berserkers, you're going to have 48 attacks. You're going to have the ability to throw sustains on them with another blessing. You're going to have the ability to put lethal hits on them with the other blessing. And then you can choose, if you're a Vessels of Wrath unit, to basically take fight on death, advance in charge to actually get into the combat. But sustain hits, lethal hits, and reroll wounds on Berserkers is absolutely gross. So we've lost our ability to do high input, high output damage, high strength, really wound things on tubes. But this detachment, Vessels of Wrath, allows you to reroll wounds on those units, and that is very, very, very strong. All right, breaking down the first Vessels of Wrath list that I have created, just to give everyone an idea of what a Vessels of Wrath list. You want to take the units in this list that are going to benefit the most out of the 3 selected units of Vessels of Wrath. So, as you can see, this list has Angron in it. I still think that Angron is very viable in the Vessels of Wrath list. Remember, he punches up very high. He has high efficiency. He has rerolls to hit. If you're not taking Angron, you're really losing that ability to do the rerolls to hit on your units. And you might see in the future, right? And I've actually tried both of these lists, and we'll go into the second one here shortly. But you're really more efficient in the Vessels of Wrath because you're losing that +1 attack, +1 strength. So you might need some higher efficiency where you're re-rolling all of those attacks, especially on the second list where you're going to see a bunch of Berserkers. If you can get next to them, allow them to get some re-rolls, and Berserkers have, sustained hits, lethal hits, and the ability to re-roll wounds. It's going to be basically destroy just about any single unit in the game, right? You're probably not going to punch up very well with those Berserkers, but the sustained hits and the lethal hits are going to help a lot with that. And if that doesn't help, you have Angron on the tabletop to give you an assist. And you also have 3 units of Exalted 8-bound. They're all 6 models each. So I would put the Vessels of Wrath on 1 of the Terminator units and 2 of the Exalted 8-bound units. Throw that non-Vessels of Wrath Exalted 8-bound unit in Deep Strike so you can rapid ingress them in turn 2. And really up the efficiency of all of these units. Also, you're going to have the World Eater's Chaos spawn in there as well. 2 models in that unit, just 1 unit. They're really, and we all know, we've used these before, right? They're really efficient at doing actions, holding objectives, things like that. We can still, if we kill a model in close combat, still sticky that. Not a lot of OC, so not the most efficient or productive way to actually use that stratagem. You probably want to do it on Berserkers, especially if you have 10 of them, because they're going to be 2 OC each. But that is a possibility. And it's not like, Berserker Warband where we had the ability to actually die and then sticky the objective markers. This one works a little bit differently. You have to kill a model from the other army and then sticky it from there. But because you don't have a lot of OC on the spawn, it might not be in your best interest. You're probably better off doing it on the Terminators or if you're running Berserkers, you do it with the Berserkers. And speaking of Terminators, there's one unit of Terminators in this list for a little bit of balance, and there's 10 of them in there. Now, this is where the Terminators are really going to shine and have higher efficiency than they do in the Berserker Warband. Berserker Warband gives you ability to that +1 attack and +1 strength, that ability to -1 damage as well. But re-rolling wounds in Vessels of Wrath and being -1 to wound when you're being shot at, you can really take these Terminators, rapid ingress them, put them in the middle where they can be seen, and make them -1 to wound in the shooting phase. And it really bumps up their efficiency and takes some feel no pain on this unit automatically by picking that blessing, and make them very, very resilient and just hard to push off. All right, and on to the second list. And as you can see, this has no Angron. I have named this one No Anger because you don't have Mr. Angry Man himself. I actually like this list a lot. It's very well balanced. The one short end that you find is that you're not going to be able to punch up as well as Angron does, even though you have the Exalted 8 bound and you still have 18 of them in this list. But you're never going to be able to punch as hard as Angron, right? Having that strength 16, having that AP4, having that D6 +2 damage is very efficient. It makes your life very, very happy when you're hitting those units, and you can take 2 Lancers, right? The vehicle Lancers from the Space Marines, and just flip both of them with just Angron doing his strikes. Very, very nice. But we wanted to try something out. I wanted to try something out and see how efficient it was. And it's been performing very well. I think in the meta currently, especially when with a lot of Star Shatter and a lot of shooting that's going on in the meta, it's performing very well, and I like it. It could be my meta, it could be the area that I'm at. I actually haven't played it in any GTs as of yet. I've tried it out at an RTT and it's been performing well. But as you can see in this list, we have Karn the Betrayer. So he's never been gone, so you can't say he's back, baby. But he's very efficient. Now, how I run this list, I put Karn the Betrayer onto a unit of Khorne Berserkers in the Rhino. As you can see, there's only one Rhino here. That means that I'm taking the Mo, and I'm either putting the Mo and the unit of 10 Berserkers next to the Rhino and just flip-flopping. Basically, take that Rhino with Karn and his crew of Berserkers, hop them out, make them advance in charge, hit the unit, and kind of position for those attacks while the Exalted 8 bound are doing the majority of the work. And then just throw the Mo and his unit inside the Rhino once Karn and his crew hops out of the Rhino. Or another option is you can rapid ingress that Mo unit with the Khorne Berserkers and throw them on the board, because remember, we have the stratagem -1 to wound. That will really help out those Berserkers. Take feel no pain on them as well. We don't have a Demon Prince on here because I think the Demon Princes are just too expensive for what they do, and they have to be very dedicated to what they're doing, especially the one on foot. If you have the Demon Prince on foot and you're trying to give invul saves to your Berserkers or Jackals and things like that, remember the best that you can get is a 5-up unless you're putting it on the Exalted 8 bound and regular 8 bound. Still gives them some good efficiency or some resiliency, right? So they can't be killed in return that easily. But as we all know, power armor still dies to a very swift wind. All right. We also have Lord Invul in here. He gives the ability to give Scout to 2 units. Most of the time, you're going to give Scout to the Exalted 8 bound. You could also option for the third option, give it to that Berserker Warband unit and with the Mo, and have them scout and get into an early close combat if your enemy opponent is just throwing their stuff on the deployment line. So it's very match dependent. It's really up to what's going on and who you're going against. And when I say who, what faction you're going against. But could be very strong. There are multiple options for that, and Lord Invul is probably an auto include when it comes to Vessels of Wrath and probably the same when it comes to the Berserker Warband. But also you have the World Eater's Lord on Juggernaut with the Arch Slaughterer. Now a lot of people are looking at this and saying, hey, why you putting the Arch Slaughterer on the Lord on Jug instead of the Master of Executions, the Mo? I know a lot of people are used to that, but the Arch Slaughterer on the Lord on Jug is actually very, very good because he only has one AP on his weapons, him and the mount, right? So you really want to help them out, give him that additional AP, give him 3 damage. He has 11 attack between the two, so that's very, very, very strong. A lot more attacks than putting it on the Master of Executions. Master of Executions with rerolls if you're hitting a character unit is probably going to do his job anyways, but the Arch Slaughterer on the Lord on Jug can be very, very nice, and it's a very great option to put on him. Also, don't forget, like I was telling you in the beginning about tips and tricks, if you want to, drop the Lord on Jug and maybe another unit of Berserkers, you can take the Demon Prince on here, and the Demon Prince can get a nasty sweep of 2 damage. That's a ton of attacks as well. So that's another option. If you feel like you kind of want to, take this list and just really change it up a little bit, just tweak it, that's another great option as well. And of course, we have the Master of Executions with the Vox. The Vox gives us the ability, since we're so CP hungry and when we want to continue to use all of those stratagems, to basically just get stratagem back, right? But that also means if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you want to throw that Vox and Vessels of Wrath onto that unit of Berserkers with the Mo in it. And then, of course, we have the Jackals and then the Khorne Berserker units. Like I was telling you, there's actually 2 units of 10, 1 Rhino. So, like I was saying previously, you only need 1 Rhino, really, for both of the units. You can take one of the Berserker units and scout them, put them next to the Rhino, or Rapid Ingress them. You also, once again, you have the Exalted 8-bound. You have 6 models and 3 units. So you're going to have 16 8-bound. And, of course, the Chaos Spawn, which are always super efficient and do super well on a tabletop, taking objectives and doing actions. So yeah, these are the 2 lists. Everyone make sure to like, share, subscribe if you don't mind. Thank you very much as always. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the show to the very end. We talked about 2 Vessels of Wrath army lists today that I have broken down. I gave you some ideas and some tips and tricks on how to put your list together as well, and what benefits the most out of it. Do you see something different that I don't? Maybe you have a better list than I do. Make sure to share it down in the comments section and let me know. Thank you so much for watching as always. And don't forget, Onslaught Gaming 40K, where victory is just a strategy away. And most importantly, burn, maim, kill, blood for the blood god. Ah!